This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, we should make sure we explain it's not the guys against the girls. It's the old parts that need a hearing speaker. That's exactly what it is. They have a speaker down there.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call this board meeting together. Can I get everybody first to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. Darlene, if I can get you to do the roll call, establish the quorum, and do the homeowner statement period.
Barbara Fugelberg,
Here?
Roberta Ernest,
Here.
Marie Beschen,
Here.
Becca Paulson,
Here.
Steve Deal,
Here.
Cindy Evans,
Here.
Ron Woodward.
Here.
Thank you. Homeowner statement period. In person, speaker may speak for no more than 2 minutes. If attending virtually, please mute your audio. Please use the chat option for your questions. Comments should be addressed to concerns of the motion before the board takes formal action on an item under formal discussion on the table. Negative comments directed at residents, employees of the association, or board of directors will not be allowed.
Thank you. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the March 9th, 2023 Board of Directors meeting. Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, corrections from the minutes from the March 9th, 2023 meeting? Any questions from the members of the board? Seeing none, any questions, comments, corrections from any member of the residents? Seeing none. All in favor of the approval of the meeting minutes from March 9th, 2023? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Financial report. I see Don is not here. Okay, all right. So Becca will be giving the financial update. Becca?
Okay, currently for our operating fund, we have $737,687. Our reserve is $4,223,846. Activities has $168,983. Food has $9,955. Clubs, $149,966. And asset improvement, $921,048.
Thank you. And any questions from any of the residents in attendance? Seeing none, move on to the next item is for approval of the February 2023 financial reports. Can I get a motion?
I move to accept the February 2023 financials.
I'll second.
Were there any questions, comments from any member of the board? Seeing none, any questions, comments of any residents? And Mike Nice, I'm assuming you're monitoring the chat for us. Okay. Okay. Seeing none, can I get a Approval of the February 2023 financial reports. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Next thing on the agenda is the committee reports. The Budget Committee, we've got three things there. The first one is regarding the members of the committee. Can I get a motion to approve the members of the committee?
I move to approve Blaine Rubish and Bob House to the Budget Committee for an extended 2-year term.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any member of the board regarding those two appointments to the Budget Committee? Just acknowledge that both of those members are already current members of the Budget Committee. It's just extending it. Any questions, comments from any member of the community? Seeing none, all in favor of approving Blaine Rubish and Bob Howes for an extended 2-year period to the Budget Committee, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So moved. Next thing has to do with allocating some money to CDs. The first item, Becca, could you make that first item motion?
I move to approve and direct the board treasurer to transfer all allocated cash, increments of $200,000 to CDs with a 3-month maturity.
I'll second that. So Becca, could you give us a little background on this? For those residents in attendance, there is a typo on the, and it instead of $2,300,000, it should be $200,000.
In reviewing the books over the last several months, I have noticed that we have a great deal of cash sitting in some of our accounts, and most of that cash is in money markets. And the money market really doesn't make anything for you. And so I decided I wanted to ask the board if possibly we could go ahead and put that money in various bank accounts and in CDs that have a 3-month maturity for cash that we know we're going to spend soon, just 3 months. The next motion I have is for cash that is going to be available or sitting in a bank account for longer periods of time, to put them in various CDs at various maturity dates. So our excess cash will always be invested.
So Becca, this first one, that's all allocated cash of the $200,000. And just for clarification, as a board, we approved to move $200,000 from the asset improvement fee into reserves to supplement some of the spending we're going to have in this upcoming year. So it's that $200 now that we're speaking to. That's allocated, $200,000. Any questions, comments from anybody on the board regarding this first motion? Anything from any of the residents? So again, since a dollar amount, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Roberta Ernest. Marie Beshan.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes.
Becca Paulson.
Yes.
Steve Deal.
Yes.
Cindy Evans.
Yes.
Ron Woodward.
Yes.
And Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Becca, will you give us the next motion, please?
I move to approve and direct the board treasurer to transfer all non-allocated cash to CDs with staggered maturity timeframes and not to exceed increments of $250,000.
I'll second. Becca, do you have any additional information on that?
The only thing I failed to say previously is we are ensuring that this money is in FDIC insured bank accounts, and that's why we have the not to exceed $250,000, because that is the limit of the FDIC insurance.
Any questions from any member of the board? Okay. Any questions from any of the residents?
Uh, Is it okay? Hello? Probably, I haven't added it all up, but I'm going to say it's going to be close to 1.2 to $1.4 million.
And the way our accounts work is particularly through Alliance Bank in HomeCo. What they do is that as money, they're in multiple different banks. The Alliance Bank is one, and they then umbrella it out to these different banks, so it doesn't exceed the $250,000. And any interest in that kind of stuff actually goes into a money market account, which can be addressed at a later time. And so that makes it safe for us.
And I failed to mention, this will all be done through HomeCo. They do this on a regular basis for many of their HOA associations. And so we will be using their, I don't know what her official title is, but like banking manager to ensure that these funds are allocated appropriately.
And Becca, the info that we had gotten from the bank on the various types of rates of returns on these CDs, currently we're getting about 0.65% in the money market account, and most of these are over 3. I want to say 3.2, 3.5. Am I correct in that? So that will
You are
be a
correct.
significant change for us. Okay.
I think that answers the question on the chat, Barb. What is the interest rates and have you shopped around? But thank you for answering that.
And again, they're all FDIC accounts. Okay. Any questions? Any more questions from any resident? Seeing none, I'll call for a roll call vote, please. I'm sorry. Can you please come up to the podium?
Hello. Is there an administration fee for transferring this money into these certification or certificates?
No,
Yeah. Are we going to different banks and getting a different amount of interest fees on that before we go ahead? Whatever the certificate is, are we going to different banks? Or is the other company that you say is going to invest this money, are they checking certain banks, all the banks, 1, 2, 3, 4 banks?
I'm not really sure exactly how many banks, but I do know they have allocated funds over the years to all kinds of different banks.
Good. Yeah.
So
we don't
it's
have
all
just
through-
one.
yes.
Don't have just one bank that we're looking into.
Yes, this is our management company that is doing this for us, HomeCo.
Yeah, home.
And we currently have, just in this one Alliance account, there's probably 6 or 7 different banks that the current funds are allocated in, and maximum of 250,000 in each one of those. So we're assuming that the number of banks will go up. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for that, sir. Seeing none. Oh, and one more.
I'm Linda Hand, Lot 422. I have a question. Where are these funds actually coming from? I'm kind of confused as to,
Their money is in our current savings accounts that are just in money market accounts, and we want to move them into a higher interest bearing CDs.
now these are all going to be FDIC approved?
Correct. Yes, as we've
at the time
stated.
that the funds are allocated?
Correct. Per our CCNRs, they must all be FDIC accounts. All right, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes,
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
and Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Becca, before we go on, off the top of your head, I'm sorry, I'm just putting this on you. In your annual report, that we had in February, you gave some numbers of the previous dollars of interest that we had collected versus since we've been looking at our investment policy on a quarterly basis, that it was the higher number. Do you recall that number off the top of your head?
I think in previous years it was, I can't remember exactly the number, but it was in $2,000-3,000. And as of the annual report, we had already earned $27,000 in interest.
So this will be good. Good for the community. Okay, building grounds and maintenance, I see there's nothing from their report. Communications committee, there's a motion. Cindy, can you give that motion, please?
Yep, I'd like to move to approve Cindy Jones as a voting member to the communication.
I'll second that. Are there any questions or comments from any member of the board regarding granting Cindy Jones as a voting member of the communications committee? Seeing none, any questions, comments from any resident in attendance or online? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the motion of having Cindy Jones as a voting member of the Communications Committee for a 2-year term, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Barb, I'd like to acknowledge that Sue Deal will now be the chairperson for the Communications Committee. Pat McCormick will be leaving us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Pat, for your service.
Yes. Pat, we will miss you. Well, I won't miss you. I'll see you in Seattle, so. Pat has done a tremendous job on the committee over the years, and particularly as chairperson of it. So we respect that, and we look forward to working with Sue more. And Sue's been actively involved, particularly in a lot of the website design and improvement. Great, thank you. So the next thing on the agenda is a report or a motion from the DRC committee. Ron, as liaison, would you make the motion?
I move to approve the DRC guidelines for the villas.
I second.
It's moved in second to approve the DRC guidelines for the villas. Ron, can you give us a little background on this?
This has a very long history and a beautiful conclusion, I believe. A lot of participation from the residents in the villas, along with leadership of Bradley and Mike Nice. And they brought this thing to the committee a couple of times. They ran through it line by line. All of the committee participated. And I think the villas policy is going to be something that's going to be beneficial to all of us.
Thank you. I just want to also point out that we became aware of the need to update the villas in a couple of two respects. One of them in that at a We're Listening session this last fall, a member of the villa community brought to our attention that when the villa guidelines changed a few years back, which would allow a replacement unit to go in. Recall there was a unit that had been a flood, and then we had to figure out that what if that happened again, what would be the process for a replacement. And during that time, some changes were made to the DRC guidelines, but as a result, some things were inadvertently, unintentionally eliminated. So this person from the village, John Chilcote, brought that to our attention. And also the board has, if you've noticed, there's been many requests for variances in there. And most often the board has had to deny those for a number of reasons. So the villa people, I don't know if they like to be called that, but we'll have to make them dance. They got together and came up with some really robust changes, which should obviously decrease the number of variance requests that would come to the board, but it would also empower the DRC committee to make some decisions based on these new guidelines. So it really should be a win-win for everybody. Any other questions, comments from any member of the board? Anything from any of the residents? Seeing none, the motion on the table is to approve the DRC guidelines for the villas. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next thing on the agenda is the safety committee. Roberta, as liaison, would you make the motion?
Sure. I move to approve John Wilkie to the Safety Committee for a 2-year term.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments from any member of the board regarding extending John's term? Seeing none, anything from the residents? Seems once you get on a committee, you're on it for life unless you never get off. That's good. John's a valuable member of the committee.
You can check in, but you can never leave.
Oh, okay. A little over. Am I too old for that or too young? Okay. Okay. All right. The motion on the table to approve John Wilkie's term for an extended 2-year period on the safety committee. All in favor, say aye. No one opposed? Motion passes. So the next thing is the club updates. So the request is from pickleball. Would you do that?
Yeah, I move to approve the pickleball club's request to install 3 4x8 backboards on the town center courts 1 through 3.
Can I get a second? Second. Okay. Is there a member of the pickleball club here by any chance? There they are. One of you with authority to speak. Yeah, I think you're gonna. Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah. Yeah.
So Terry Pelham, lot 1138. There's actually an error there in that request. We're actually asking for the 3 boards to be installed on Town Center Court 1 instead of 1 through 3.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any questions?
So I don't see any dollar amount with it, so I think with the way I interpret this, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Right.
Yeah, we're not asking for any dollar amount.
You just want the permission to put it there.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The pickleball club will cover the cost.
Okay, all righty. Any questions from any member of the board regarding this?
Just a comment. We've dealt with issues about walls, and the first iteration that we saw said walls or fence. The recommendation that I would hope we would look at the fence rather than the walls. I know contractors that won't allow their people to put a shovel against the wall, so I think we ought to use the cyclone fence rather than the block wall.
How do you respond to that?
Well, we would prefer the south wall. I know that some of the walls over there are questionable as far as their strength, but I think the south wall is pretty sturdy. So I'd request you take another look.
I was just going to say, has Bradley or maintenance or anybody, have you been in contact with maintenance or Bradley or anybody?
No.
I really think that we ought to have somebody, Mike, go down there with them.
No, I agree. I think that's a good scenario. We can go down and walk it together and ensure that it's going to be a secure situation.
Sounds good.
So could we just amend the motion to move to approve the pickleball's request to install these 4x8 blackboards on Town Center Court 1, pending communication with maintenance for the actual exact location? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any member of the board? Seeing.
No, I just think it needs to be noted to the owners that the pickleball club is paying for those, and then they will also, they talked about installing them and painting them and getting them to the right height. So they're doing the work.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from any member of the community here or online?
Is this a permanent fixture being installed on the tennis courts?
No, it can be removed, is my understanding. Pickleball. He may have said tennis, but it is the pickleball courts. And
Right. Yeah,
Go
they
ahead,
would be
Mike.
bolted to the wall. They would be bolted to the wall. So they could be removed.
They could be removed. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Any other questions, comments from any resident? Nothing on the chat, Michael? Okay. All right. So the motion is to approve the pickleball request to install 3 4x8 blackboards on the Town Center Court 1, pending communication with maintenance regarding installation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval for the replacement of the HVAC unit. Steve, would you make a motion, please?
I move that Gotham Air be approved to replace the large high-vac unit servicing the chuck wagon dining room not to exceed $54,450.
I'll second that. So, Steve, could you give us a little background, or maybe Mike, who can ever speak?
So this last board meeting, we have requested that we get additional bids. We did receive an estimate from Kinko at $58,687 for the installation of this 20-ton HVAC that's on top of this area that they're working on right now, which is roof Q. This area is servicing the dining room area for the chuck wagon. We've had some issues with it throughout the winter. It's currently working on 10 tons as they've segregated half of the unit just to keep it working for us. So we know it's failing. The unit is an 08, so it's time. We tried to get 3 estimates for you, but we really had a hard time trying to get another vendor in here. We had another vendor, but they refused to give us a bid if we didn't provide the dollar amounts from the other estimates we received. So we got 2.
Any other questions from any member of the board? Cindy, did you have a question? Okay, all right. It's my understanding that we frequently have Kinko provide a lot of our service, but that we've also used Gotham Air a number of times, and we've been satisfied with both vendors in those responsiveness and all. The Kinko quote did state that there was a 30 to 40 week turnaround time on it, on getting the thing. Did Gotham Air give us an estimate as to when it'd be available?
It's going to be pushed out real close to the same time frame. I mean, these larger 20-ton units, they're going to have to be made by the manufacturer. We're going to be looking at waiting a long time for installation on that. And we're just hoping we'll keep it running throughout the summer on those 10 tons that it's functioning on right now. It might take a couple service calls if necessary, but we're going to try to keep that dining room cool for the summer months.
That was a question that I heard from some folks. Okay. And anything else from any member of the board on this? How about residents? Any questions, comments do you have regarding the motion on the table?
Ray Smith, lot 1512. Is this a reserve item? Is this all coming out of reserve? And if it's within the budget we have on reserve for it?
Yes, it is a reserve item, and we should add that to the motion as to which the item is. I have my reserve study down here someplace. Do you have yours quicker? I don't have the exact one. It is because it's under CF5 and CF6 and CF7. I don't know the exact one here, but I'm assuming it's the one that has zero life, and it's $58,700 is the reserve item. So this does fit just barely within that amount. Okay. Thank you for the question, sir. Anything else from any of the residents? Seeing none, given that it's a dollar outlay, I'd ask for a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
and Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next thing is a new business. First thing on the agenda, therefore, is the approval of the sawmill storage shed repair and enlargement. Becca, would you make that motion, please?
Hello? Okay. I move to approve Sawmill's request to repair and enlarge the sawmill storage in the amount of $3,800. The cost to the association would be $3,200 and the balance of $600 to be paid by the sawmill.
Second.
So I see the request from, I believe, Bill Powell is the president of the Sawmill Club. Am I correct in that? Thanks, President. And funding request is in keeping with clubs paying a portion of the costs projects. The sawmill proposes to pay for the skylights and the wind turbine, as well as providing all labor to complete the project, except the pouring of the slab. Timing would have the slab poured this summer and the sawmill to do the repair work over the summer. The request for funding is that the building's in need of repairs, unknown age and origin, and that there are potential planned repairs in the future. What questions do we have from members of the board?
My question is really simple. We start this process in December. It's now April, and we just got this request. If we're ever going to get a handle on how we spend money and where we spend money and why we spend money, that process needs to be followed. And in my judgment, that should be placed into next year's questions and requests, not added on at the last minute.
I tend to agree with Steve. There is a process, and this request did not go through the process. Did not go to BGM. It did not go to the budget committee. This is the first, I think, that the board has seen it.
Yeah, you just answered my question.
I agree. We're at a point where we need to, we've been discussing this. We really need these things prioritized, not just coming in. And we've got a lot of requests that come in like this. We need to be able to prioritize what's more. And I didn't see anything in their documentation that said there was any, other than it's in need of repair, but I didn't see that there was any leakage or water damage or those types of things that would indicate that it has a high priority at this time.
I think that's accurate. The building is fairly old and fairly small. And I understand the rationale for the request. I just think the timing is not what we would like to be able to do to prioritize expenditures.
Okay. So any other questions from any member of the board? Anything from any of the residents? Any sawmill people here? Okay. And Mike, nothing on the chat, I'm assuming. Okay. So the motion on the table is to approve Sawmill's request to repair and enlarge the sawmill storage in the amount of $3,800. The cost of the association would be $3,200. The balance of $600 to be paid by the sawmill. Again, it's a dollar amount. I'd like a roll call vote, please.
Roberta Ernest,
No.
Marie Beschen,
No.
Becca Paulson,
No.
Steve Deal,
No.
Cindy Evans,
No.
Ron Woodward,
No.
Barbara Fugelberg.
No.
Thank you.
We would entertain this in the fall as we start prioritizing reserve expenses for the next fiscal year. Just for the residents, I want to point out that our current year to date, we've spent over $1 million on actual reserve items, repair and replacement of reserve items, and we've had an income of $768,000 into the reserve. So we know that we've overspent because there are some critical items. We also know that we still have about at least $100,000 to spend in the finalization of the roof repair process. So we don't have excess reserve dollars at this time to spend. Okay. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the increase in the RV storage fees. Becca, could you make a motion, please?
I move to approve the Budget Committee's recommendation to increase the storage fees to $780 annually, $65 per month, for large storage lots, and $600 annually, $50 per month for small storage lots. Increase will be effective May 1, 2023 for new contracts and May 1, 2024 for contract renewals.
I'll second.
What questions do we have from any member of the board regarding this motion?
What percentage of our storage space is taken now? Are we 100%?
We have 245. And my understanding, Mike, correct me, you sent me the information. How many do we have on standby on a wait list? And they've been waiting approximately 8 months at a time.
Yes, let me get that for you really quick here. I want to say she said we have over 40 that were on hold right now for an 8-month wait list.
48.
Thank you.
Do we know the last time we raised the rent?
We raised it in 2021. The residents can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe at that time we went from doing it a month by month to it having to be a lease for the entire year. And that at that time, there were about 50% of the residents who were doing it month by month. So in essence, 50% of the residents got 100% increase. Am I?
Okay, so I don't look at it that way. It was making up numbers. If it's $10 a month, but it happens that instead of paying monthly, you have to pay yearly, that's not a rate increase. That's just change in when you pay the rate.
It's not a rate increase, but it's the amount that they would have to pay in order to reserve their spot. Anything else from any of the board members? Okay. Sir.
Yes, I'm Lee Underwood, space 543 Mustang. I've been a renter of a storage space for years, and I believe what you're talking about, there was an increase in rent when it went to every year. They went to, you could rent for 6 months, and then it was more if you rented for a year. Maybe not. But my question is there a budget allotted for the storage space? And what's it spent on? All I've seen up there since I've been there is new combination locks. There's no maintenance. And just because our rent is lower than the outside, I really feel that we should be given a break, not an increase, because it doesn't go to anything. Patrol goes through, we never hear a compliment, all we get is complaints.
Mm-hmm.
They do not straighten the bollards that's up there. If you want them straight, you do them yourself.
Bollards.
The rock can't go anywhere. I mean, if you were telling me that we want to increase it to pave it, then I would be a little bit more on board, but right now I'm dead against it.
Okay, thank you. Linda Johnson, is Linda Johnson here? I thought I'd seen, Linda, could you come and speak? Linda Johnson is a resident here, worked in the office for 400 years, and Linda was the person that you signed the contracts with. So Linda, if you could give us a history of the increases, I'd appreciate that. A little higher, please.
2002, the cost was $20 for any small, large. I don't remember the exact dates, but it was always, you had to take a minimum of 6 months. You put a reservation down if you left in April or May, stating you were coming back October, November. That space would be set aside for you. That system has been up until 2 years ago when HomeCo decided, accounting, that they wanted all of the leases to run with the fiscal year. That's been the biggest change. Plus, they made everybody go on a year lease. Up until then, you could have a 6-month lease, you could have a 7-month lease. Now everybody has to have a year lease, whether they're using it or not. The last rate increase that I'm totally aware of was probably 2020, maybe 2019. I don't have my notes
Thank you.
or anything.
That's kind of what I was thinking, that we raised it in 2019 or 2020 for the actual per month rate. And then 2021, we raised it from requiring it to be a year-long lease. Okay.
I believe it was 19, Barb.
19, thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. Okay, sir. Name and lot number,
Ray
please.
Smith, lot 1512. I'm just reiterating what people have already said. Your big increase a year ago was basically 100% if you had a 6-month lease. This increase we're looking at now, if you have a large lot, a large space, is looking at about a 30% increase. I agree with the individual who mentioned about the only maintenance I see that occurs out there is we replace a lock a couple of times a year. And yes, they've broken the little rebar twice, I think, in the process. So that has to be welded back. There's no lights, no power out there. There's really nothing to be maintained other than make sure the fence doesn't fall down. I see a justification simply because our particular storage space costs less than someone else's. I don't think the original builder of the development here intended that space be used for anything other than storage as a convenience to the owners who own property here. And a lot of them bought because they could take their rig and put it in that storage space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Frank Pollen. I just bought a lot 1513 last year. And a lot of the reason I bought this lot is because I was very enthralled with all the conveniences of this lot. Of this community. We have 3 swimming pools. We have a sawmill. We have storage. We have a car wash. We have research. We have a tennis court in the town center that we all are sitting in right now. These were all conveniences that we bought when we bought our lot. The average lot's $200,000 here now. I bought my lot because of the conveniences. The HOA went up this year 8%, or will be 8%, as opposed to the 6% maximum because of the cost of living. This generates a lot of money that should be distributed out to the community, and I believe it is. But with all these conveniences, why are we singling out one convenience in the storage lots, which costs next to nothing to maintain, and singling out the people that use it as opposed to the people who use the tennis courts, the swimming pool, the pickleball court that's going to cost thousands of dollars to resurface? Why are we asked now to compete with outside storage units that are there for a profit, not for the convenience of a community that paid an average of $200,000 per lot?
Thank you.
I think that's about it. We don't pay for the swimming pool. We don't pay for all these other things that are conveniences that we bought for. We bought a lot for. We don't have to pay for the chuck wagon, which so many people use. I don't personally do pickleball. I can't physically do it, but I understand that it's a convenience for everybody that's here. I think we should have the same consideration of the storage units, especially being it went up 25% 1 or 2 years ago, and now it's going to go up another 30% this year because we're trying to compete with the people outside. Outside, you don't have to rent for a whole year. So that's another raise that really, if we only rented here went outside, we don't have to rent by the month. That's a big raise, especially when we only use it 6 months out of the year, the majority of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, next.
Steve Sharon, lot 522. I've been renting the storage areas here for quite a few years now, and I would wish you would go ahead and take some other options into consideration, like going back to monthly. Because right now, for 5 months out of the year, I pay $480. That's $95 a month for those 5 months. And the rest of the time, it sits empty. It's a waste. All these people on that waiting list could be using my lot.
For that period of time.
Thank you.
Right.
So I do have a question to the board and to HomeCo. Was HomeCo managing the monthly billing on that?
No.
So why were they pressing for a yearly? Okay, it was a recommendation, Barcelona, it was a recommendation from their accounting to do that. Okay.
That's what I was going to
just need to
say.
have an
Accounting was the biggest, if I'm not mistaken, I wasn't in the position I'm in now, but I believe accounting was the biggest concern of how we were managing that and how that was going to happen every 6 months versus 1 year.
Before you speak, sir, Mike Ruglin's here, isn't he? No, I heard his voice. Mr. Ruglin, would you come forward, please? No, I'm asking Mike to come forward. He was treasurer at the time, and he might have a better memory, though I know he is older than me, so maybe he might not have as good a memory, but. And he's related to my husband, so I know those genes do.
Like Rugland lot 1130, it's all Linda's fault. No, it's been an issue over a number of years in regards to whether or not the storage was a benefit to everybody in the resort or just a few. And what I mean by that is if you got a storage unit there and you sign up every year, you can keep it. I know people have been in them for 10, 15 years. So it's not really a benefit for the whole resort. It's a benefit for a few. And we always looked at how to make additional money in the resort, whether it be from savings from utilities or other areas of the resort. And one of the ways to get money was to increase the dues on the storage fees. So we looked at it, and then there was a discussion on, it was a kind of a maintenance nightmare to keep everything going, so they decided to go to a yearly rental. And I don't remember the numbers at that time, but that's my recollection of all of it.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Okay, sir.
Steve Kenny, 987. And I just wanted to, pretty much everything that I was going to say has been said. So, and it was a 25% increase 2 years ago. All right.
All right.
Lee Underwood, 543. I absolutely do not understand a maintenance nightmare. And it's not a convenience. We pay for that. So anybody in Happy Trails, get on a list. You can have a storage space, whether you use it or not. That's neither here nor there.
I think that when Mike said that it was a maintenance issue, he didn't mean the maintenance of the storage yard itself. He meant the actual maintaining of the list of who had contracts and who didn't. That in the monthly payments, that was cumbersome.
Okay, I understand that. But what does that cost? We should have a cost analysis of that.
Well, it's $20
versus
an
what
hour.
the
So-
income
Right.
is.
I hear you.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
It's keeping up with who's current, who isn't.
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
I can tell that would be,
Right.
and
It's-
try to
it's,
satisfy everybody.
Right, correct. Okay, sir, can I?
I just have a couple of questions. One is, do we know how many contractors are working out of this parking area? And I've seen trucks come in there with construction trailers on the back of them. And I mean, the box trucks, not pickups.
All of
And I've
the,
seen that several times.
all of the lots there are rented to residents. There's not
Okay,
any
so
lot that,
it doesn't make any difference if you're running a business out of there?
correct. If
Should we have some kind of control if this is supposedly for the
a little closer to your
community?
mouth, sir.
What?
The microphone a little
Okay.
closer to your mouth.
If that's supposed to be for the residents to have a place to park their fifth wheels or whatever, but we have contractors coming in there and I'm sure they're using the dumpsters, should we have more control over that?
We never ask people for what's their purpose of parking an extra car in there
But we're
or a
not
storage
talking about
fee.
it. We're not talking about an extra car. We're talking about a commercial vehicle. There should
Okay.
be a line drawn that if you're going to have a business, you should not get a cheaper rate to park your vehicles because you live here. And you're making it hard on somebody else that's been waiting 8 months to get a spot to park their van or whatever they're going to park there.
We don't differentiate right now, to my knowledge, as to what's stored in there. And we know that there's RVs there, we know there's cars, we know that there's box cars, we know that side-by-sides, all sorts of things that are parked in there, but they are only rented to people who are residents here.
Yes, I hear you.
But what you're saying is that if I'm having a business and remodeling homes and I'm storing my box car out there so that I can cart my equipment back and forth to your
Yeah, so
unit or
it's
not.
cheap, you're saving money. And you're keeping other people that want a parking spot out of there.
If a person owns a lot here and is still working,
Yes.
and he's got a large vehicle that he cannot park in his lot, why would you deny him the right to rent a spot where he can park it? I mean, that's what you're basically asking.
Okay. And another question too I have is let's see, I lost my train of thought. What was the question? How many
You can only,
lots can you rent?
technically you should only have one lot per lot
And
that you own. And we've only got, there are 4 lots.
we enforcing that?
There have been contracts written in the past that currently out of the 245 lots, 4 people have 2 lots.
Oh, okay.
2 people
So we're
have
not
2 lots.
enforcing it.
Well, they contracts that were written years ago when there was not a waiting list.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yes. Well, there's
That's
2 lots, and so we have to sort of decide which is the issue that we're going to try to fix now. So we've heard the comments from the residents. Anything on the chat, Mike?
Yeah, there's some chats here, but I will add that 2 of those 4 have 2 lots within the resort.
Right. So it's 1-to-1 in essence.
Correct. And chat wise, it's following par with the room here. RV space rent goes up 30% at one time. Will the rent still be due at one time, or can we do payments broken up? That's a big jump. Because of increasing fees for storage, I'd like to entertain installing an automatic gate opener. Is storage for profit? What's the cost of maintaining the storage area? If storage fees go up, will there be an active attempt to improve communication, getting contracts like in the past and having accurate paperwork with these previous office employees? Linda's fantastic. It's hard to replace her. The storage fees are going up too much. Sorry, but it is a gravel lot without any cover. I'm okay with a year lease, but why can't we make it like a monthly payment along with our HOA? Borders for each space aren't divided. to show where the RVs are supposed to park, why. How about we eliminate the north storage space and put in more pickleball courts and basketball courts? Even with the increase, it's half or less than outside storage. Everyone can use an amenity in HT except the storage. Only 12% of residents can use the storage at one time. So the other 88% are subsidizing the use of the valuable land. We should not be compared to outside storage. That is not true. It is a benefit for all residents to have the opportunity to rent those spaces when they come available. You're subsidizing literally nothing. If we all wanted to play tennis at the same time, let's know how long we work for that. Nothing that's available here is large enough to accommodate everyone.
Given the volume of comments that we've had here, do the two of you have any additional items or additional arguments to make?
I was just going to address breaking down the payments also into either monthly, quarterly, or half yearly.
Thank you.
Frank Pollen, 1513 again. If the board insists that we have a full year of rental at a time, can we sublet during the summer? Because 2/3 of the people aren't even here during the summer.
You've always been allowed to sublet during the summer.
That
But
was my
it's
question.
your responsibility to do that work and not the offices.
I didn't know that. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to call for the motion to approve the Budget Committee's recommendation to increase the storage fees. I won't get into the amount, and that would be effective May 1st, 2023 for new contracts and May 1st, 2024 for contract renewals. Roll call vote, please.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
No.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
No.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
And I'm voting no. The comments here, but additionally in that, I feel that all rate increases should come in our February board meeting, and I would prefer that it had been done then. So my vote is no. So
Motion passes.
the motion passes?
Yep, 4-3.
4-3. Code of conduct. We will look into issues more than that 6-month option. Okay. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is regarding the asphalt proposal. Steve? Oh, my goodness. There's more coming, ladies and gentlemen. There's more dollars being spent.
First of all, we received bids from 4 different.
Please, let's maintain. Steve?
We received bids from 4 different vendors for the asphalt, and I think that's as many vendors that, qualified vendors as we've ever received bids from. So that was a good thing. At this time, I'd like to move that we approve YSC paving for the 2023 asphalt work in the amount not to exceed 1 million. Oh, pardon me. I forgot this extra fees here. $1,181,204.
I'll second that. So, Steve and Mike, we had 3 different proposals, correct, initially in that 3 different scenarios, of things that we would do. And what you're suggesting here is that we do all of those. So could you spell out which sections will be included?
Yes. BGM had 3 proposals. One is section 2. That's all of the villas. All of that includes center concrete, waterways for drainage of the concrete, or for drainage of the water. Asphalt and concrete are not great things to run water down, but concrete's a whole lot better than asphalt. So that will include all concrete. The second option was that bid plus seal coating of section 8. And the alternate was all of section 2 and all of section 8. And that is what BGM has recommended. We were given the number by budget and the board somewhere around $1,300,000, and we're considerably under that. And by the way, the bids from the lowest to the highest were only $8,000 apart for 4 different vendors. So they cut it pretty close. And I feel real good about the bids that we got. That will leave next year section 4, and we will have completed all of the residential sections of the resort and all but a small portion of Dale Evans. That will be all that we have left to have completed all of the streets in the residential areas and the boulevards.
So that's the good news. The good news that these big reserve expenditures are, we can see light at the end of the tunnel, that they'll be gone. Next year, we'll have section 4, which will probably be another 500,000, maybe around in that. So then also the question that I have is on this proposal, it includes the amount for YSC for the actual work that's being done, 121,000 allowance for additional unforeseeable conditions, and then $76,000 for the consultant for the technical assistant. Could you or Mike speak to the value that Michael Frank's consulting brings to the community?
Well, the first value relative to the consultant is that we started with him a couple, 3 years ago, and we now have a plan through 2032. So there will be no more surprises about asphalt, seal coat, or any restructuring or reconstruction that we might have to do on any kinds of road. That's the first benefit. The second is that that consulting firm is on site during all of the applications that are necessary in this bid. The grind, the reconstruction, the concrete pour, the asphalt pour. They do slump tests on the concrete and the asphalt so that we won't end up with big gullies and uneven asphalt. And we had in past years hired anyone from an activities director to someone who knew what asphalt was. And now we have someone that is more than qualified to do that. And that's the best part of the expenditure relative to making sure we get what we paid for. And the contingencies are that rather than have to come back for another board meeting because someone ran into a problem in the process of the grinding or the overlay or the center concrete, that's already covered. So we should not have any reason for a contractor to have to come back to us and say, we need more money.
Thank you very much. And the use of your recommendation that we select the YSC paving is that, it's my understanding, they're the company that we used last year, and we were very satisfied with the service that they provided.
I think that Mike Nice can speak more to that than I, but we've had contractors that were impossible to deal with putting asphalt down. And compared to any of those contractors, YSC was very easy to work with. But Mike, I'd let you speak to that if there are other items.
Yeah, so YSC, is not the lowest estimate that we received, second to lowest estimate. However, they were very responsive at last year when it came down to following through. I know that they had some subcontractor concerns and issues with, nails out on the road and things like that. However, they were very responsive to these concerns, very responsive to damage done on private property, very responsive to us from management. So the suggestion and the recommendation from the BGM committee was that we proceed with that relationship that we've built over the last year and carry that on with the scope of work that we have to proceed with. And just to add on to that, Barb, just for record's sake here in the room, it does include the seal coat and crack seal of package 5, seal coat and crack seal of package 10, the ranch, seal coat and crack seal of town center parking lot, which also includes a partial reconstruction back towards the back of the chuck wagon and pickleball courts. They're going to have to tear that, mill that out, and re-pour some of that portion just because it's in bad shape. Full reconstruction of package 2, the villas, and full reconstruction of Cascade parking lot. Also full reconstruction of package 8.
Thank you. Very comprehensive. Potential start date and ending date?
Right now, we're looking at the end of May as a start date. You know, a lot of end date's hard. A lot of it's going to depend on monsoons. Our goal, as I talked with Frank Civil yesterday, they're waiting on us to you know, provide a choice of bidding here so that we can move forward with some exact dates. We're shooting for end of May. And with that being the plan, then we can set an official date and then hopefully get some stuff moving prior to the monsoon season. So it's going to be kind of hit and miss, but they don't like to grade and mill right before monsoons, knowing it's going to be a muddy mess. So it's just going to depend on how quickly we start getting rain and monsoons this year.
Any other questions from any other board member? Yes, and it is in the reserve funding. Anything from any of the residents, either in the room or in the chat?
Donna 379. Just one question. Over by the Cascades, last monsoon, it was like a river. I actually thought my car was going to stall out because there was water up to my door. Are they going to put any like drainage?
So you're talking on Dale Evans, I believe, that drainage area.
Correct.
So there's not going to be anything additional there, but we are working on a drainage concern that comes off of the golf course down there, which is preventing our water from draining down that roadway. So
Yeah,
it's not
because we need something.
right. I agree. It's not something that's included in the new asphalt, but we are underway with some concerns there.
Thank you.
We do also have an additional check question here. What about package 7 that had the asphalt area and the drainage concern? And that is also something that was included in our surveying to get a company to take care of that area, because that was with Al Killy in the prior year. We had some concerns with some standing water. So we are still proceeding with some of that area in package 7 that wasn't seal coated right on Wrangler. And that was one of the questions. So we'll proceed in that direction as well.
Thank you. Sir. Oh, Mr. Maring. Sir, I didn't.
That's my dad.
That's your dad, yes.
Jim Maring, lot 1125. I was on the board, started about 10 years ago, and we were doing asphalt then. So thank you, board, for pushing to wind it up, because it's been a long, costly item, but needed. Thank you.
Yeah. And I would really like to commend the BG&M committee and Steve for pushing on this. As we know, what we've learned over the years, Jim, when you were on the board, I think you'll acknowledge that every year we learn more and more about asphalt. And I think now through the BG&M committee, we've gotten a lot more educated and are making some good decisions. Mr. Ruglin.
Hi, Mike Ruglin, 1130. I got a question regarding the reserves. We got $1 million coming out in asphalt, right? Have we got a plan for roofs and all the other stuff? And what's the next couple of years look like in regards to spending and incoming?
Right. I'll speak initially to that, and then we'll have Steve answer. We are currently asking for bids on the roofs, but NC1, and also for potentially a third of the town center. We believe that we'll be getting a bid on NC1, which should be around $250,000. So that's currently in our thinking that we'll have about 1.3 million in reserves, with the 1 million of incoming from our monthly fees and the 200 and some thousand, 1.1 million from the incoming fees and the 200,000 from the asset improvement fee. That brings it to 1.3 between this and the NC1. That should cover it. Does that answer your question? Maybe not.
Do we have a plan out further than this year to take a look at income and expenses out of the reserves?
Yes. You want to speak to that, Becca?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I'd like to see it.
We just got the reserve study back from Associated Reserves, and we haven't really had time to digest the changes that were made based on from the Budget Committee and the BGM Committee. So we'll be speaking more to that. Steve, did you have anything else to add?
Well, remember that this board approved the transfer to the reserve fund twice this year, $300,000 each time out of operating funds into the reserve fund. So there's an extra $600,000 from operating that went into reserves this year, as well as the asset improvement money.
We've also increased the contribution level into the reserve to start trying to replenish back in from 20 to 25%.
Miss Marilyn?
Marilyn Klein, 392. Just about 3 years ago this summer, Dale Evans was done. Right where it comes to Happy Trails Boulevard, where right after they did it, they dug it all up. And you can go in there and it's a checkerboard pattern of cracks right at the boulevard. And I wonder if that, while they're in here sealing, if that could be fixed. Because it's just going to be, there's a lot of big equipment coming down Dale Evans all the time. And the trucks are just going to make potholes, rather, if they don't get that fixed.
Mike, could you speak to that? We noticed that Dale Evans had a number of cracks relatively soon, almost in every X number of feet. And you've had people look at that, correct?
Yeah, and Dale Evans is coming up. Don't quote me on how soon we're looking at crack seal coat to Dale Evans. I could definitely look at that with you if you'd like to come by, and I can show you what the plan is, but it is not on the agenda for this summer.
Thank you. Anything else from any resident? Seeing none, the motion on the table, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, is to approve the recommendation to have YSC perform the 2023 summer asphalt project for Happy Trails, not to exceed $1,181,204.18.
I didn't put the 18 cents in.
Okay.
I'll
Well,
give you the 18 cents.
Okay, you'll do that. Thank you. We charge interest. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Okay. Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
and Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sometimes Roberta goes by Bobby and sometimes Barbara goes by Bobby. Well, the name, not necessarily us. Sometimes I go by Barbie, but that's if you're a relative. Okay, next thing on the agenda is regarding resurfacing the tennis courts and the town center pickleball courts. Can I get a motion to that?
I move that we approve resurfacing by General Acrylics of tennis courts not to exceed $31,225. The not to exceed number?
Yes, please.
31,225.
I'll second that. Would you like to speak to that, Steve?
The condition of the courts is really not all that bad. The tennis courts are really, it's just the 5-year cycle, and that's why it was put on there by BGM. None of the courts will be redone if we approve these bids until at the earliest September. That's how far out all of the vendors are. So we're looking at September or October. The reason that the pickleball courts at Town Center were not included is that they are going to require some leveling, and we haven't been able to get anybody to give us an accurate cost estimate of the leveling of those courts. And there's no point in putting a new surface on and turn around and level it the next year. So that is why the pickleball, the resurfacing of those really can't be done until they're level. There's some other issues. We're waiting for a long-term plan to come to us, and that may affect all of that as well. So that's why it's limited only to the tennis courts.
Thank you. Becca?
Speaking of long-term planning, we are due a report very soon, the end of this month, the 1st of May. I don't think it's in Happy Trail's best interest to resurface any courts or do anything for clubs or anything other than our community areas until we go through the long-term planning process for this next year. We can take that $30,000 and buy some nice furniture for the courtyard, to resurface or redo the pool decking, to buy new pool furniture. But at this point in time, because that is for the entire community. But until we go through the long-term planning process, I do not think we should fund, at least this next year, anything for any of the clubs here on this campus.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. And I'll just throw the bomb out there since I heard it earlier. Maybe we look at some lights for the storage facility because there were some concerns about that too.
Thank you. Any other questions from any of the board members? Okay. How about the residents? Motion on the table is to approve the resurfacing of the tennis courts at $31,225. No tennis players here. All right. Do you have a comment, Marie? Okay. 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 Well, he's a member of the BG&M committee too, isn't he? Mr.
Tim Shear, lot 2268, BGM committee and tennis player. So, we were asked to resurface the courts. They're supposed to be done every 5 to 6 years. And I have a justification saying that they haven't been surfaced since 2013 when they were built. So we're looking at 10 years already. The court surface is recommended to be done on item 1611 of the reserve study of last year, every 5 years. So we're already looking at 10 years. And to me, these courts are part of our facilities here. They're part of Happy Trails. And to kick the can down the road or say we're not going to maintain certain parts of the facilities here, I just don't think that's a really good decision. When they start cracking and peeling and breaking, it's only going to get more expensive. So I would just suggest that we spend the money to maintain the facilities that we have. Thank you.
Can I ask you, since I'm not a tennis player, well, I have a tennis racket, you would never call me a tennis player. How would those of us who are non-tennis players know that the surface needs to be redone?
So what's going on with it? It's got some spider cracking going on where water could seep under the cracking. And then with the pickleball courts last year that we did resurface, all 10 courts at Cascades were resurfaced last year. So we're sort of trying to phase this into a scheduled maintenance program, pickleball, tennis, town center pickleball. There's also some breakage of the surface where it's popped off of there. Again, water, moisture could get under there and cause further damage. So, and the fading, obviously it's faded a lot in the last 10 years. So.
Is there, just out of curiosity, a new color that tennis courts need to be done as compared to pickleball has brand new color?
That's a great question. No, the tennis courts will be done in the exact same colors, which requires less coats than if you were to change colors. Okay. And in detail work around fences and things like that. So it's more expensive to change colors.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from any other member of the community? Anything in the chat, Mike?
Negative.
Okay.
Linda Osterguy, lot 1114. How much of this is the tennis club paying for?
We have no information that the tennis court is offering to pay for any portion of it. Am I correct in that? I'd be glad to be corrected. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Marie?
you for that. One of the things that I'd like to speak on that is that we would hope that all the clubs, not just tennis and not just pickleball, but all the clubs, when they come up to the board for assistance, would offer something. And that's something that we're taking a look at in the coming years of clubs participating. Also, budget. You know, every year we look at the budget and we write up a budget. And to come to us at the end of the budget year and ask for assistance, we talked about that earlier. And coming to us at the end of the budget year.
This has been on the BG&M committee's agenda though. and it's been
BGMN
discussed.
has been working on
Has been
it. Kim, I don't know how many, did you get 4? There were at least 4 different vendors, and we don't usually get that many. So because of his effort, we actually have a pretty good idea of what it costs. There's not a ton of money difference between low bidder, next bidder, and final bidder. And if, as Tim indicated, it's just scheduled to be redone. The surface isn't gone, but it's that time that it needs to be replaced.
And I would assume having it staggered from the time frame for the pickleball courts is beneficial to us so that we're not getting hit by a huge dollar next year. Okay. Couple more questions, please, and then we'll call for the motion.
Just something that Marie hit on. When the clubs come to, do you guys have a form or something that you can give them at the beginning of the year or the budget time that they can fill out and hand into you and say, okay, this is what we're proposing and what we need? That way you're not getting these last minute requests.
Right. We'll be starting that this fall. In November, we'll be having a meeting with the club presidents implementing that so that we get all of these things when we start approving the budget. But as I said, this has been reviewed in the BG&M committee, so it's not like it's a surprise.
Studio Lot 1578, who's lost your voice somewhere between here and there.
Or you got a frog.
Pardon me. Just.
And that comes from the communication committee, no less.
I told you I'm not always good at communicating when I need to be. I just have 2 comments about maybe this and a qualification. This is stuff that is in the reserve as planned to be maintained, but more than that, these are assets of the community no matter who uses them. And having had a husband who played pickleball adamantly, and I know some of the tennis players, they are dangerous now. They're starting to disintegrate. And for the people themselves, it needs to be taken care of.
Thank you. I'll call for the motion then. The motion on the table is approve the resurfacing of the tennis courts at the tune of $31,225, and we will add on to that the specific reserve item number. Again, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Roberta Ernest,
No.
Marie Beschen,
No, but I would like it noted that it's a no for now, but it's a postponement.
Becca Paulson,
No.
Steve Deal,
As the board liaison to the BGM committee, I'm going to abstain.
Cindy Evans,
No, I agree with deferring.
Ron Woodward,
No, no, and I agree with Marie's comment about just looking at this further down the road.
Barbara Fugelberg.
I would vote yes, but motion does not pass.
Motion does not pass, correct.
But we would indicate it's not dead. My CPR card is not current, but we can get that renewed. So the next thing on the agenda has to do with the replacement for the car wash. Can I get a motion, please? Sure, Steve, you can do that. You're good at talking.
I move to approve the proposal in the amount of $22,139.20 from Coleman Car Wash Systems Incorporated to replace the car wash.
Second.
So, Mike Nice, can you speak to this, please?
I can, and I'm sure the residents will agree that our car wash has been an ongoing nightmare. To be honest, it's very outdated. Our mechanism is very outdated. Our all of the machinery that's functioning inside of that car wash is very outdated. Last year we did put a new motor in that location. Unfortunately, it ties in with a lot of our outdated equipment that we have in there. So we did bring in a vendor, which there are not very many locally here. And this gentleman has provided us an estimate to fully replace all of the equipment in that location, including the mechanism. So it will be brand new functional machine that will also take dollar bills, $5 bills, and quarters. So it's one of those things that is unfortunately a little pricey, but will take us a long ways when it comes down to long-term maintenance of that location. I'm pretty sure our maintenance guys are there every other day, if not every day. So it's just something that has came to a halt.
So you would say that this current car wash is older than most of your employees?
I don't know about employees, but it's definitely older than me.
Okay. Okay.
So I just want to confirm that the car wash is owned by us. So we take in all the revenue. We don't share this with anybody else.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments from any board member?
What is the approximate revenue from the outdated car wash?
$4,000 a year.
Okay. And if we look at the frequency that this has been down this year, and just even in prior years, the number of times, I do think this is warranted. But there have been questions about whether it would take credit cards, and you indicated that we don't have the Wi-Fi capability down there to do credit cards, but it does more than quarters. It does get bills.
Correct.
Right. And, you know, we don't know what's going to happen down the line regarding washing or water. We know that there's issues statewide with water. We know that our current water supplier, EPCOR, in the state of Price, says that there's plenty of water, but we also know if you read the paper that everyone's talking about increasing their rates. And so nothing has been really discussed, but you know, there's the potential at some time we really have to crack down on the number of cars being washed in the driveways. And if we're going to do that, we need a spot for them to wash their cars that's consistent.
Right, absolutely. And you know, it's frustrating. We see, you know, as management, I'm sure the board as well, we see on Facebook that there's a lot of concern in regard and a lot of frustration, and rightfully so. So we can't respond on social media, but we see it. And it is frustrating for a lot of our residents that are trying to go down there and maintain their vehicles and do the right thing and not wash on their property. So I think it's very important. But we do have a chat question that is pretty important too, is the dollar amount to that. It's something that we're going to have to look into. There are going to be adjustments on the new machine that would be installed where you can set it to be how many minutes per how many dollars, how that's all going to work out. I've done some preliminary research, and from what I understand from maintenance right now is it's $2 for 17 minutes right now. So we'll have to look into that and see if that's something that's sustainable now, if we need to bring the time limit down, or what the case may be. So that's something that management will proceed with moving forward.
That would be something we should keep the residents informed of. I would assume that they like the deal they're getting. But I also believe, having been down there, that sometimes you're not getting a good deal when all you're getting is soap, even in the rent cycle. And so you're ending having to pay more. Okay. You also mentioned the timeliness that this could be installed. Could you give us a little update on that?
Yeah, he's saying that he should be able to get the parts here pretty quick, shipping wise, and then he should be able to install here pretty quickly. I mean, he didn't say that there was an extensive time wait for installation, so we proceed that it will be done within the next couple of months.
We have this in a reserve item, correct, don't we?
We do.
Okay. At the same token, we anticipate that we might have a little money left at the end of the year, and we could always get this out of the operations of that as a potential option too. Anything else from the board? Anything from the residents? You almost cut someone off there.
Harlan Holton, lot 2311. Is this going to include a soft water rinse, Mike?
It does not include a soft water. It includes a wax, and let's see here. Stainless steel cabinet, high pressure wash, rinse, wax functions, foaming brush system, low pressure tire engine cleaner, colorful instruction sign, high pressure hose, foam brush hose, and then all the other equipment. So no, it doesn't have a soft water system.
Because you always have to have two people with chamois running around chasing you after you get that rinse on. And I've warned some new people about that.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Mr. Fall?
Bob Fall, lot 496. This is a prime example of an item that needs a full study on. When was the last time we looked at the cost of water and all the soap and everything else, including plans, maintenance, and things that we've spent on this to know what the pricing should be, right? This is a prime example of that to me. You know, like we've talked about with anything else, chuck wagon or whatever you want to talk about, it's all that we should be pricing it accordingly to our cost, right? So that's my indication of saying, while we're doing this, and I don't know if any of you know when the last time we priced it. Last time did we check that where the $2 we're getting on each car wash is covering the cost of that car wash? Do we know that?
I would believe, we do not know that, Bob, for a fact, but we can easily identify how many hours of our staff gets attributed, say on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, kind of like,
right.
Lawyers spend out their dollars, and we could account for that. I would assume that that's way more than the $4,000 we get in annual.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
increase.
and the key to me is that we know the cost of water has gone up. We know what all that is. How does that calculate out to say that car wash ought to be $2, it ought to be $3, it ought to be $1, whatever the cost is, that's what we need to be covering.
Thank you. We can ask that, excuse me, I'm just looking for we can ask that management give us that information maybe by September 1st. So we have a way of evaluating whether it's been effective or not. Is that right, Bob? Okay. All right. Anything else in the chat? Okay. All right. It's in dollar amount. Roll call vote, please.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
and Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Next thing on the agenda is approval of the Butler Hanson CPA contract. This was something that in an executive session, the board approved that. So Darlene, do we need formal approval here or just ratification?
We just need ratification.
Okay, all right. So I'll move that we ratify the contract with Butler Hanson CPA for our audit firm. Can I get a second? Roberta, second. Becca, could you speak to this, please?
Yes. When I first came on the board, I looked at our prior audits. I spoke to our accountant about our prior audits, and apparently we'd had the same auditor for a very long time, about 11 years. And that auditor had not been on site for at least as long as our accountant had been here. I am a former CPA, and I was in charge of an accounting department or a finance department at a university. And to me, an audit is a little bit more than blessing your books. And being a new treasurer here, I decided that we should maybe look around and find somebody that will actually come on site, check all our internal controls, really do a good job auditing our books, and make sure we're all where we should be and we're doing what we should be doing. So I recommended we go with a new firm for this next year, or for this year's audit.
And this Butler Hanson firm that we're recommending is a firm that's used by many HOAs, and that's their only business is HOAs.
Yes, HOAs are their only business, and they were recommended by HomeCo. They do several HomeCo clients.
So it's not to say, let me reiterate, that we do have an audit every year. Every single year we get an audit. The question is, the reports that we get appear to many of us to be fairly generic, and and hardly a template, and rarely did we see an actual recommendation. We know that our finance people are good, but every audit report typically has a recommendation periodically. And as Becca said, in her experience, that it's beneficial to change every few years, in particular when we have a new accountant and a new treasurer.
And I think the average is approximately every 3 or 4 years. Most firms change their accounting audit firm.
So we'll be seeing approximately $2,000 increase in our annual fee. Okay. Any other comments from any board member? Questions? Residents?
Barb, I just want to reiterate that $2,000 increase does include them coming out to do an in-house audit.
Thank you. Thank you. And so with that, we'll be asking, Becca will be on site to be able to ask them specific questions regarding some of other, again, I lost the train of thought of the accounting control process. What's the term
our
you used?
internal controls.
Internal control.
How we do business, how we handle cash, how we pay our bills, how we receive and deposit our funds, those types of things.
Okay. So all in favor of ratifying the approval of using Butler Hanson, the CPA contract, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is a request from the owners at Lot 103 for reimbursement in the amount of $500. Can I get a motion to that effect?
I move to approve the owner's request for reimbursement in the amount of $500.
Second.
So Mike, can you give us a little background on this?
Yeah, so this all started here just recently within the last week or so regarding a water break on a domestic water line here in the resort. And the concern was not the water break, of course, it's a daily occurrence for maintenance, but that when we dug up that water line, we found that that water line to the property was also connecting to the neighboring property. And ultimately it shouldn't have been. It was done, I'm sure, many, many years ago. Who knows if it was done with approval or not approval. At that time, the owner wasn't, the current owner of that property. So with that being said, we had to cut that line that was conjoining the neighboring property for multiple reasons, liability purposes, things along those lines. You're encroaching from one property to another with the water line. Which puts some responsibility on Happy Trails, as well as Happy Trails is responsible for the domestic line from the main to the main shutoff to the water line. So that's Happy Trails' responsibility on a daily occurrence when we're doing those water lines. That's our responsibility. Above that main shutoff valve is homeowner responsibility. So with that being said, we did cut that line, which ended the water supply to the property's shed. I presume that that's where their washer and dryer is. As many properties throughout the resort, and they had to rerun water from the back of the existing manufactured home back to the shed where it should have been ran initially. The cost was $1,000 by JLA Concrete, and the owner is requesting a reimbursement of half.
So we have no idea when this occurred, and it was probably multiple owners ago. So the current owners of both properties were not involved in in
Right.
this.
Right. And then I included Dave as well. I mean, Dave's been here for quite some time and he doesn't have, recollection of when that may have been done. We've seen it on a couple other occasions where the line had to be cut. In some occasions it was cut and then it wasn't needed to that location anymore. But my assumption is that it was definitely the easiest connection that could have been made. Probably the most affordable. And to be honest, it was probably in a time frame that was, hey, John, do you care if we connect to your water line? No, no problem there. So it wasn't a situation, I'm sure, that was intentionally harmful, but it's something that we have to address moving forward.
So help me understand, in a community where we share water, so it doesn't affect anybody's water usage, but you still say that we had to move the line.
I think the concern is, I think hypothetically, and I know this is off the wall, but if a water line breaks and floods a house and we're responsible for it, and it should have never been connected from that lot to that lot, and it was done unprofessionally or whatever the case may be, that we're going to be liable for some part of that. This question here is owner's expense, knowing that it's their property and it was to be connected to their riser that's coming in off of the main to their property. The request was that the board, potentially cover half of that cost in good faith, knowing that this was probably done forever ago and they weren't aware of it. And how could they have been aware of it without digging that water line up prior to the purchase of the property?
Steve?
Most of the lots in this resort are fed by a 3/4 inch line from the main to a shutoff at each property, correct?
Correct.
And this one, for some reason, they put a T in the line and ran it to the neighbor's house.
Correct.
Okay.
What is, Darlene, the question for you is, what is our potential liability? That's probably the wrong word. Implications if we approve this and there's other issues down the line of other resorts, of other lots.
Well, I think we're going to have to take it on a case-by-case basis based on the history of that particular lot and what has happened there. So as far as this, I mean, the only problem I see is if we don't, I mean, we could have been liable if there was like Michael said, if there was a flood and we flooded out their home because of the way the line was put in. Now, we don't know who put it in, if it was our maintenance crew or some independent contractor, but it was actually put in incorrectly. So we need to, it does need to be corrected by the homeowner. But again, I think we need to look at each case on a case-by-case basis and the history behind that.
Yeah, that's my concern, because not being devil's advocate, but just stating in the CCNR is what, 9.1, the homeowner is responsible for all repairs and maintenance to their lot. From the main to the house.
From the,
okay.
Correct. The shut off
So
valve
that's
to
the
the
problem,
house
is
is the
underneath,
responsibility of the home.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from any board member? Comments from the residents? It's confusing. So the concern is that we have no way to know if this was actually approved by anyone here in the resort officially. There's the potential it may have been done, though we don't have any documentation either way. But these homeowners have no documentation from prior homeowners as to how it was done.
No, and I will add that this has been completed already. That the homeowner did proceed one way or another. It had to be taken care of.
Residents, any comments, questions? Mr. Rugland? Getting his steps in today. Bill?
Bill Trice, lot 2350. As me being a contractor before, there's a lot of them like that.
Did you put your initials on any of them when you did that?
This is a continual problem with Happy Trails in regards to the utilities run to each lot. And in the past, as you probably know by looking at the budget, we took responsibility, we being the board took responsibility to pay for water breaks because they were installed wrong. So that's really no different than doing this one right.
Thank you. I'll call for the motion then. The motion is to approve the owner's request for reimbursement in the amount of $500. Roll call vote, please.
Roberta Ernest,
Yes.
Marie Beschen,
Yes.
Becca Paulson,
Yes.
Steve Deal,
Yes.
Cindy Evans,
Yes.
Ron Woodward,
Yes.
Barbara Fugelberg.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. So the last thing under new business is an owner's request. I'm sorry. I'll get this right yet. We're on to variances now. The approval of the owner's request to allow an undersized travel trailer on lot 262. So I'll make that motion. I move to approve the owner's request to allow an undersized travel trailer on the lot. Can I get a second for discussion?
Second.
We've got it. So, Mike, can you give us background information on this?
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of insight here. This really pertains to our rules and regulation and recreational length. It sounds like earlier on there may have been a little miscommunication on actual length of the recreational vehicle versus the length of the recreational vehicle and how it's coded per the manufacturer. And that's kind of the confusion and the question here, I guess you could say, is that the actual length, including bumpers, hitches, things along those lines, it meets the requirement of the association. But per our regulations, it doesn't, based on the livable space being only 20 feet. So it doesn't meet the 24-foot minimum, or if you're excluding the tongue, bumper, draw hitch, things along those lines. So that was the discussion that was had with the resident. They're looking at purchasing this brand new, and from what I understand, they've placed it on hold until a decision is made by the board of directors.
So correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it though that we state in our regulations that it is either what's on the license or what's on the label on the RV?
The registration there. In this case here, and that's exactly what I asked the resident. And when it's, as it's being sold, it sounds like it's advertised as a 20-foot recreational vehicle. But if you look, he's gone out and measured the actual length of the vehicle. So, I don't have a title here in front of us, and that's kind of where we stand. It sounds like all the conversation that we've had with the residents is going towards the direction that the actual length of the recreational, livable space of the recreational vehicle is only zoning it or coding it, or whatever, however you want to call it, coding it as a 20-foot recreational vehicle versus a 24-foot recreational vehicle.
If we did the tongue and the bike rack and the storage module on the back, it could be quite long.
So the CCNRs don't address it, but the rules and regulations do. And I'm addressing the comments in his letter because he talks about there's a difference between 5.1 and 1.4B. Well, 1.4B is under the definition section, which clearly states it has to be 24 feet, and that excludes the tongue and the bumper. And then when you go into section 5, which talks general recreational vehicles, residence vehicles, that's when it's a little more generic in nature and just says 24 feet. So it is clearly defined in the definition of the rules and regulations, but it is not in the CCNRs.
And we've been consistent in that in other requests, that it has to be what's on the license or what's actually on the label on the unit.
That is correct.
Anything else from any board member? Then we'll get to the residents, please.
John Lish, lot 971. And a few years back, I got into the same situation where we got into nitpicking over the bumpers and whatnot. Here I had a $150,000 small motorhome, which did not meet the 24 feet requirement. I think this is a ridiculous requirement. I think we need to worry more about the condition and the age of the recreational vehicles than the length. 24 feet is an arbitrary number, and as more and more people are getting smaller and smaller cars, I think, in fact, the length should, in fact, be reduced to something more like 18 or 20 feet.
Well, that is something that would require a change to the rules and regs, and we are looking at right now, but the current regulations is what we expect people to adhere to, and the current regulation is 24 feet. Mr. Saunders.
Brian Souders, Lot 38. In my years here, I don't remember a variance ever being approved for a smaller trailer. But if you tour the resort, you will find trailers that have never requested variances or got approval to bring them in. So there definitely needs to be a change in this rule, and coming up and saying whether the body of the trailer or the body of the RV length, I mean, extending the bumpers and the hitches in front, I don't think that should be part of it. It's whatever the body length is, livable space, but it needs to be looked at again and if possible, change the rule so you don't end up with a lot of these variances.
Right. Thank you. We also know that people will bring in things hoping that we change the rule. I also know that when I go in for my physical, I put on higher heels so I can be 5'4", so my weight looks better. I don't think I'm the only one in the room. Anyway, let's call for the motion. The motion to approve the owner's request to allow the underside travel trailer on the lot. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. Motion does not pass. But be advised that we are looking at changing rules and regs that we'll be discussing in the fall. The next thing on the agenda is to approve the owner's request for an underage resident. Can I get a motion?
I move we approve the owner's request for an underage resident.
I'll second that. The request, as I get it, is they want a personal friend and decorator to stay in their home. The person is 48 years old. He would be residing from mid-May until August 30th of this year, and he'd be decorating the interior while he is here for the summer. I'd like clarification on this. Is the resident going to be present while this person is here?
Negative.
Okay. And the resident, I'm assuming, is 55 and older?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the way I read this is that that this is not a guest.
Correct.
Because I guess the resident has to be present and the guest would only be allowed for 14 days.
Correct.
And this would be a person under age 50 being on the lot, and this person is not on the title. And
Correct.
It's just a friend. Okay. Questions, comments from any member of the board?
I think it's an unusual situation because it sounds more like a vendor who needs to be in the lot in order to do the redecorating.
Anything else from any board member?
Well, we're saying redecorating, but we're really probably talking construction, right?
That I don't know. It was stated as redecorating.
I mean, I'm just going on that based on the fact that they're redecorating, that's one thing, but construction work, you probably don't want to be in the unit while you're having construction work done. That's where I'm going with it. Yeah, and you
I'm
don't
not
know,
sure.
so I'm
I'm
looking
not
at you.
sure.
I'm sorry, Mike. Okay, so yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we don't have any, it says a personal friend. Right. Is you're right.
You're not in the unit.
So if we look back at other things that we've done, I know just within the last few years, we've had issues where residents, a couple, leaves for the summer and a relative of theirs happens to be in town, maybe looking for a job, and they say, well, I'm not going to be there, so you can just go ahead and stay at my place until you can find an apartment. And that person is underage, and we've made those people leave. We did not allow that. So we've not allowed things that are convenient. I think we'd all admit that if we're not here and we have someone coming into town, sure, it'd be nice for them to be able to stay in our unit that's unoccupied, but it's not in our regulations to allow that. So any other things from any board member? Residents? Anything on the chat, Mike?
Why can't they come and go daily, 9 to 5? Technically speaking, they could.
They could.
They could. They could maybe put it on the list as like a vendor or anything else. They could come as long as they're not residing on the property.
Yes. So the motion on the table is to move to approve the owner's request for the underage resident. All in favor of passing this motion, say aye. Seeing none, all opposed, say nay. Motion does not pass. Thank you. So as that would be the end of the meeting, that one thing that I would like to just remind people that we have sent out the questionnaire on the blast on the neighbor network requesting feedback on the chuck wagon and how you might like it to occur. And so if you've not seen that or don't have the ability to fill out that questionnaire, if you could let the office know and they can help you get your password updated so you can complete that survey. And we have a deadline of that on Monday to complete that. Okay, management, do you have anything?
I just want to say, we know that there's quite a few people that have already left, and some of you will be leaving within the next few weeks. So we just want to say happy trails to you, and we hope to see you in next season.
Right.
Thank you.
And then just as an FYI, the board was moving into executive session for the purpose of looking at some appeals from residents and to look at delinquencies. Can I entertain a motion to? We're out of here. Thank you. Aye. Thank you very much.